Nari wiped the sweat from her forehead as she crouched behind a metal barrier. The training room felt like an oven. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. Around her, the sounds of simulated battle filled the air. Laser blasts echoed off the walls. Heavy footsteps thundered across the floor. She was 19 years old and one of only 12 humans at the Galactic Military Academy. The Academy sat on Nexus Prime, a massive space station that orbited between 3 suns. Students from 50 different planets came here to learn how to become officers in the United Species Defense Force. Most of those students were twice her size. Nari peeked around the barrier. A squad was scattered across the training room. Each member was trying to reach this central objective, a glowing blue device that needed to be captured and held for 60 seconds. The problem was that the room was full of automated defense systems that shot energy beams at anyone who moved. To her left, Cadet Vorth moved forward. He was from the Krillin species and stood 8 feet tall. His thick blue skin could absorb most energy weapons. When the defense turrets fired at him, he barely slowed down. To her right, Cadet Zena used her 4 arms to carry a portable shield while firing back at the turrets. Her people came from a high-gravity world. What felt normal to Nari would crush most humans. Nari checked her watch. 15 minutes had passed. They had 20 minutes total to complete the mission. A squad leader, a massive reptilian creature named Orcs, was pinned down near the far wall. The other squad members were either wounded or hiding. This was not going well. Nari studied the room layout again. The defense turrets rotated in a pattern. Every 30 seconds, there was a gap in their coverage near the left wall. Someone was fast enough. They could use that gap to reach a control panel. From there, they could shut down half the defense grid. She activated her communicator. "This is Nari. I could reach the control panel if you give me covering fire." Gorax's voice crackled back. "Negative, human. You are too slow. Wait for backup." "There is no backup coming," Nari replied. "The other squads are busy with their own objectives." "Let me try." I said no. "That is an order." Nari closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had trained for this moment for months. Every day at the academy was a test. Every day she had to prove that humans belonged here alongside species that were stronger, faster. She opened her eyes and made her decision. When the turrets rotated away, Nari sprinted from her cover. Her legs pumped as fast as they could carry her. Behind her, she heard Gorax shouting over the communicator, but she ignored him. The control panel was 20 meters away. 15, 10. A turret swiveled toward her faster than expected. She dove and rolled, feeling the heat of an energy blast pass over her head. The panel was right in front of her now. She slammed her hand against the access button. The left side defense grid powered down. "Move now," she called to her squad. "The left path is clear." Her squad mates advanced quickly through the gap she had created. Gorax reached the central objective and activated the capture device. The timer started counting down from 60 seconds. For a moment, Nari felt proud. Her plan had worked. They were going to complete the mission. Then everything went wrong. The backup defense systems activated. Hidden turrets rose from the floor and began firing. Nari had not known about these systems. They were not in any of the training materials she had studied. Her squads scattered again. The capture device needed someone to stay near it for the full 60 seconds, but the backup turrets made that impossible. One by one, her squad mates were hit by stun blasts and marked as casualties. The timer ran out with 40 seconds remaining. Mission failed. The lights came up and the simulation ended. Nari sat on the floor where she had fallen, her uniform dirty and torn. Around her, the other cadets slowly got to their feet. Some nursed bruises from the stun blasts. Others just looked disappointed. Heavy footsteps approached. Nari looked. up to see General Vexter walking into the room. The Trainee general stood 7 feet tall and was covered in dark green scales. Scars crossed his face and arms, souvenirs from real battles fought across the galaxy. On his chest, he wore the Star of Trainee Supremacy. It's the highest military honor his species could award. Behind him walked his aide, Captain Mordok, carrying a data tablet that recorded scores and performance ratings. "Pathetic," General Vextar said, his voice like grinding stone. 20 minutes to complete a simple objective, and you fail because you lack discipline. The cadets stood at attention. Nari pulled herself up, her legs still shaking from the sprint. The general walked slowly around the room, examining each squad member. When he reached Orcs, he nodded approval. "You followed orders and maintained position. Good." He moved to the next cadet, then the next. Each received either praise or constructive criticism. Then he reached Nari. "You," he said, pointing a clawed finger at her. "Step forward." Nari walked to the center of the room. Every other cadet watched in silence. "Explain your actions," the general commanded. Nari straightened her shoulders. "Sir, I identified a weakness in the defense pattern. My plan was to create an opening for the squad to advance." "Your plan?" the general repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. "You were ordered to wait. Instead, you disobeyed a direct command from your squad leader. Sir, with respect, waiting would have meant certain failure. We needed to take action." The general's eyes narrowed to slits. "Did I ask for excuses, human?" "No, sir, but I believe my tactical assessment was correct. The backup systems were not mentioned in our briefing materials." "Silence," the general roared. His voice echoed off the walls. "You dared to question the training program. You dared to make excuses for your failure." Nari felt her face grow hot, but she kept her voice steady. "I am not making excuses, sir. I am explaining my reasoning." What happened next took everyone by surprise. The general's clawed hand struck Nari across the face with a sharp crack that rang through the silent room. The blow sent her stumbling backward. She caught herself before falling, raising her hand to her cheek. She pulled her fingers away. They were red with blood. "Humans," the general said, his voice filled with disgust. "Nothing but prey animals pretending to be predators. You have no place among warriors. Your kind is weak. Your bones break easily. Your skin tears at the slightest touch. You should have stayed on your little planet where you belong." The other alien cadets began to laugh. Some pointed at Nari as she stood there, blood running down her face. Others made comments in their own languages, but the meaning was clear from their tones. Nari's human friends stood frozen in shock. Her roommate, Kong Suman, stepped forward as if to help, but Commander Park Jin-ho, senior human instructor, held up a hand to stop her. His face was hard as stone, but Nari could see the anger in his eyes. Military regulations prevented him from interfering with another officer's discipline. General Vextar turned to address the entire group. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. Weakness has no place in the defense force. Disobedience will not be tolerated. Inhumans," he looked directly at the small group of human cadets, "should remember that they serve at the pleasure of their betters." He walked toward the exit, then paused and looked back at Nari. "Clean yourself up, cadet. You look even more pathetic than usual." The general left with his aide following close behind. The other cadets began filing out, their conversations filling the air. Most avoided looking at Nari as they passed. Soon, only the human cadets remained. Salmon approached carefully and offered Nari a clean cloth for her face. "Are you okay?" Salmon asked quietly. Nari took the cloth and pressed it to her cheek. The bleeding was already stopping, but the marks from the general's claws would leave scars. "I am fine," she said. Commander Park walked over. Nari woke up before dawn. Her face still hurt from the general's claws, but the cuts had healed during the night. Three thin red lines ran from her left temple to her jaw. They would leave permanent scars. She looked in the mirror and touched the marks gently. Every human at the academy would see them. Every alien cadet would remember what happened in the training room. The scars would be a constant reminder that humans were considered weak unless she did something about it. So Min was still sleeping in the next bed. Nari dressed quietly in her formal dress uniform. The dark blue fabric was crisp and clean. Her rank insignia gleamed on her collar. Every button was polished to perfection. She had spent the entire night reading through military regulations and ancient combat codes. What she discovered gave her hope. The academy followed traditions that were thousands of years old, rules that came from dozens of different worlds and species. One of those traditions might be her salvation. The corridors were empty as Nari walked through the station. Most cadets were still sleeping. Classes would not start for another 2 hours. She passed through several security checkpoints, each scanner reading her identification and granting access to restricted areas. General Vextar's office was located in the command section of the academy. The door was massive, made from black metal and decorated with Draconary war symbols. 2 honor guards stood on either side. They were both Draconary, almost as large as the general himself. Nari announced. The guards looked down at her with obvious amusement. One of them spoke in the Draconary language to his companion. Both laughed. "Ha! The general does not see cadets without appointments," the first guard said. "Especially not human cadets." "This is not a request," Nari replied. "This is official business, under Military Codes, Section 12. The guard stopped laughing. Section 12 dealt with matters of honor and formal challenges. It was one of the oldest parts of military law, dating back to the founding of the Defense Force. "Wait here," the second guard said. He pressed a button on the door and spoke quietly into his communicator. A few minutes later, the door opened. Captain Mordok emerged, looking tired and annoyed. "What is this about, cadet?" he asked. "Invoke the right of challenge under Section 12 of the Military Code," Nari said loudly enough for both guards to hear. "I formally request single combat with General Vextar." Mordok's eyes widened. Behind him, she could hear movement from inside the office. "You cannot be serious," Mordok said. "I am completely serious. According to Regulation 12.7, any member of the Defense Force may challenge a superior officer to single combat if they believe their honor has been wrongfully attacked. The challenge may not be refused without loss of status and reputation." General Vextar appeared in the doorway. He wore a simple military uniform, but even in casual clothes, he looked dangerous. His yellow eyes focused on Nari with intense interest. "What did you say, human?" he asked. Nari stepped forward and came to attention. She spoke in a clear, strong voice that carried down the corridor. "General Vextar of the Draconary 4th Fleet, I am Cadet Lee Neri of the Terran Defense Corps. Yesterday you struck me without provocation and insulted my species in front of assembled witnesses. You called humans prey animals and said we have no place among warriors. These words attack not just my personal honor, but the honor of all humanity. Therefore, under Section 12 of the Military Code, I challenge you to single combat." The general stared at her for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. It started as a low chuckle, but grew into a roar that echoed off the walls. "You," he gasped between laughs, "want to fight me?" "A tiny human child wants to challenge a Draconary general. The challenge stands," Nari said calmly. "Do you accept, or do you refuse?" The laughter stopped abruptly. The general's expression became dangerous. "We realize what you are asking for," he said. "Single combat means no weapons, no assistance, no mercy. It is a fight to submission or incapacitation. Many who enter the circle never leave it alive. I understand the terms completely. Captain Mordok stepped between them. General, perhaps we should consider the political implications. Something happens to the human cadet, there could be diplomatic consequences. She issued the challenge. The general replied, "The law is clear. I cannot refuse without bringing shame upon myself and my people." He looked at Nari again. "Very well, human. Accept your challenge. We will meet in the main training arena tomorrow at 1400 hours. The combat will be witnessed by Academy staff and recorded for official purposes." "I have one request," Nari said. "You dare make demands?" The general snarled. "Not demands. A request under subsection 12.9. I ask that all cadets be permitted to attend as witnesses. This challenge involves the honor of my species. My fellow humans should be present to see it resolved." General Vexstar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Granted. Let them watch their champion be destroyed. It will be educational." "The combat will last exactly 10 minutes, Mordok announced, reading from a regulation manual. "Victory conditions are submission, unconsciousness, or judge's decision if neither combatant can continue. The winner may claim one non-essential item from the loser as a trophy of victory." Nari nodded. "Understood. Then we are agreed," the general said. "Tomorrow you will learn why humans are considered prey animals. I suggest you spend today writing letters to your family." Nari saluted properly and turned to leave. Behind her, she heard the general and his aide talking in low voices. She caught a few words about foolish human and quick victory. As she walked back to her dormitory, word was already spreading through the academy. Other cadets she passed in the corridors stared at her with amazement. Some whispered to their friends in alien languages. A few humans approached her with concern. "Is it true?" asked Cadet Park Minho, a second-year student from Seoul. "Did you really challenge General Vexstar to combat?" "Yes," Nari replied. "You insane?" he asked. "He is 7 feet tall and weighs 3 times what you do. His species evolved on a death world where everything tries to kill everything else. He has been fighting wars since before you were born. I know what I am doing. No human has ever defeated a Trainee in single combat. Not once in recorded history." Marie stopped walking and faced him. "Then I guess it is time to make some new history." When she reached her dormitory room, she found Simon waiting with several other human cadets. They all looked worried. "We heard what happened," Simon said. "Nari, you cannot fight him. He will kill you." "He will try," Nari agreed. "I have been thinking about this all night. I have studied every recording of Trainee combat techniques I could find. I know his strengths and his weaknesses." "What weaknesses?" asked Cadet Lee Dongjin. "The man is a walking tank." Nari sat down at her desk and pulled out a data tablet. The screen showed detailed anatomical charts of the Trainee species. "Every species has vulnerabilities," she said. "The key is knowing where to look for them and how to exploit them. Trainee are incredibly strong, but their size and mass work against them in certain situations. They rely on brute force and intimidation because those tactics have always worked for them." "So, what is your plan?" Somian asked. "First, I need to survive the initial assault. Trainee fighters like to end battles quickly with overwhelming force. If I can avoid that and drag the fight out, his advantages become disadvantages." She pulled up video footage from the general's military record. The screen showed him in various battles, always dominating smaller opponents with raw power. "Look at his fighting style," Nari continued. "He uses the same basic approach every time. Advance aggressively, grab the opponent, and crush them. It works because most enemies try to match his strength directly, and you are not going to do that." Dongjin said. "Exactly. I am going to use his strength against him." Every Dractinary weakness stems from their greatest strength. They are so powerful that they never learn to fight opponents who refuse to engage on their terms. Commander Park Jin-ho entered the room without knocking. Akadas immediately came to attention. "As you were," he said tiredly. "Nari, I need to speak with you privately." The other cadets filed out, leaving Nari alone with his senior instructor. Commander Park looked older than his 40 years, and today he seemed especially tired. "I tried to stop this," he said, spoke with Admiral Kim and requested intervention. "He says the challenge was issued properly and cannot be withdrawn without your consent. I will not withdraw it. The general has killed 17 opponents in formal combat over his career. 17 Nar. Most were larger and stronger than you. I am not trying to be larger or stronger than him." Commander Park studied her face, noting the 3 scars from the general's claws. "What are you trying to be?" he asked. "Smarter, Dad." Evening, the main dining hall buzzed with conversation about the upcoming combat. Betting. The main training arena was packed with more people than Nari had ever seen in one place at the academy. Every seat in the observation deck was filled. Cadets, instructors, and even some senior officers had come to watch the impossible fight between a human cadet and a Dractinary general. Nari stood in the preparation room, checking her equipment one final time. She wore standard combat gear, lightweight armor that covered her torso, and a helmet with a clear visor. Her hands were wrapped in protective tape. No weapons were allowed in single combat, but she had requested and received permission to wear regulation combat boots with reinforced soles. The door opened and Commander Park entered. He looked nervous. "The medical team is standing by," he said. "Have emergency transport ready if needed." "I will not need it," Nari replied, adjusting her helmet strap. "Nari, listen to me. If things go badly, submit immediately. Do not try to be a hero. A tap out means you live to fight another day." She turned to face him. Through the clear visor, he could see her calm eyes and the 3 scars on her left cheek. "I understand your concern, Commander, but I did not come here to lose." Buzzer sounded, indicating it was time to enter the arena. Nari walked to the door, then paused. "Whatever happens out there, remember that I chose this fight. No one forced me to challenge him." The arena floor was a circle 50 meters across, surrounded by energy barriers that would prevent anyone from falling out. The surface was covered with synthetic material that provided good traction, but would cushion impacts slightly. Around the edges were various obstacles, barriers, platforms, geometric shapes that could be used for cover or tactical advantage. As Nari entered, the crowd noise was deafening. Most of the alien cadets were cheering for General Vexstar, but she could hear human voices calling her name from one section of the stands. She looked up and saw all her human classmates sitting together, wearing their dress uniforms in a show of solidarity. So men stood up and saluted. One by one, the other humans joined her until the entire section was standing at attention. It was a gesture of respect and support that brought a small smile to Nari's face. Then the opposite door opened, and General Vexstar entered. The crowd erupted. The general wore ceremonial Dractinary combat armor that gleamed under the arena lights. The armor was black with gold trim and covered his massive frame from neck to feet. On his chest, prominently displayed, was the Star of Dractinary Supremacy, a medal shaped like a golden star with red gemstones at each point. He was enormous. Standing 7 feet tall and weighing over 400 pounds, he made Nari look like a child by comparison. His reptilian head turned slowly as he surveyed the crowd, acknowledging their cheers with small nods. Admiral Kim Taezong stood up in the command booth and activated the arena's sound system. "Today, we witness single combat between General Vexstar of the Dractinary 4th Fleet and Cadet Lee Nari of the Terran Defense Corps. This challenge was issued and accepted under Section 12 of the Military Code. Combat will last exactly 10 minutes. Victory conditions are submission, unconsciousness, or judge's decision. Let both combatants approach the center circle. Nari and the general walked toward each other until they were standing 5 meters apart. Up close, the size difference was even more dramatic. The top of Nari's head barely reached the general's chest. Last chance to withdraw, human, General Vextar said, his voice carrying clearly in the silent arena. I have no desire to kill you in front of your friends. I appreciate your concern, Nari replied politely, but I must decline your offer. General shrugged, a gesture that made his armor plates shift and clank. Then you will learn why my people rule the northern sectors while yours huddle on one small planet. 3 judges took their positions around the arena perimeter. Captain Mordok served as the official timekeeper. Admiral Kim would oversee the entire event to ensure proper procedures were followed. Combatants, take your positions, Admiral Kim announced. Nari and General Vextar moved to opposite sides of the center circle. The arena fell completely silent. Thousands of eyes focused on the 2 fighters. The combat begins when you hear the horn, Admiral Kim continued. Remember that this is a matter of honor for both participants. Fight with courage and respect. Your opponent. Nari closed her eyes and took 3 slow, deep breaths. She could hear her heart beating, but it was steady and strong. All around the arena, she sensed the tension and expectation of the crowd. When she opened her eyes, General Vextar was staring at her with predatory intensity. His yellow eyes gleamed with confidence and anticipation. This would be an easy victory. For him, one that would reinforce Draknari's superiority over the weaker species. The horn sounded. General Vextar charged immediately, moving faster than something his size should be able to move. His strategy was simple and direct: close, distance quickly, and end the fight with overwhelming force. Nari did not try to meet his charge. Instead, she ran. She sprinted toward the nearest obstacle, a metal barrier 3 meters high. The general followed his heavy footsteps, shaking the arena floor. The crowd roared as the chase began. Nari reached the barrier and leaped onto it, using her momentum to vault over the top. The general crashed into it a second later, but the barrier was designed to absorb impacts from much larger beings. It held firm. By the time the general had moved around the obstacle, Nari was already running toward the next one. She moved in a zigzag pattern, never staying in one place for more than a few seconds. Run all you want, little human, the general called after her. You cannot hide forever. But Nari was not hiding. She was learning as the general chased her around the arena. She watched how he moved. She noted which foot he favored when turning. She observed how long it took him to change direction after a full sprint. She counted the seconds between his breathing cycles. Most importantly, she watched his emotional state change from confidence to frustration. After 2 minutes of chase, the general stopped in the center of the arena. Enough, he roared. Face me like a warrior, not a coward. Nari stopped running and turned to face him. She was breathing hard, but not exhausted. The general, despite his superior conditioning, was showing signs of strain. His species had evolved for short bursts of intense activity, not extended pursuit. I am facing you, Nari said calmly. This is how humans fight when we are outmatched in size and strength. We use our intelligence. Intelligence, the general spat. You call running away intelligent. I call it tactical assessment. In the past 2 minutes, I have learned everything I need to know about your fighting style, your physical capabilities, and your psychological profile. The crowd had quieted to listen to this exchange. Many alien cadets who had been cheering now watched with growing interest. Your assessment means nothing, the general said, starting forward again. Now I will catch you, and this charade will end. But this time, Nari did not run. Instead, she moved sideways, circling the general at a distance of about 10 meters. She kept her eyes fixed on his, never looking away. "You know what I learned about you," she said conversationally. "You have never fought an opponent who refused to engage on your terms. Every enemy you have faced either tried to match your strength or was too afraid to fight at all." The general feinted left, then lunged right, trying to predict her movement. But Nari had already changed direction and was moving the opposite way. "You are used to winning through intimidation and raw power," she continued. "But those tactics only work against opponents who fight the way you expect them to fight." Verbal sparring was having an effect. The general's movements were becoming more aggressive, but less controlled. He was letting anger override his training. "Your armor is beautifully crafted," Nari observed, still circling. "It protects you from direct impacts and energy weapons, but it also adds weight and reduces your flexibility." The general stopped, trying to catch her, and stood still in the center of the arena. His breathing was becoming heavier. "It's that medal on your chest," Nari said, pointing at the star of Drakenary supremacy. "You earned it through courage and skill, but now it represents something else. It represents the arrogance that made you think this fight would be easy." "Silence," the general shouted. "I will not be lectured by a prey animal." He charged again, but this time Nari was ready for him. At the last possible second, she dropped to the ground and rolled between his legs. The general's momentum carried him forward into a barrier wall. As he turned around, Nari was already on her feet behind him. 4 minutes, she announced, checking the arena clock. Halfway done, Nari stopped circling and faced General Vexstar directly for the first time since the combat began. The arena fell completely silent. Even the alien cadets who had been betting against her were now watching with intense interest. "You think you have been clever, human," the general said, wiping blood from his nostril. "But running around like a scared animal proves nothing. Now, face me properly." "As you wish," Nari replied. She walked straight toward him, her steps calm and measured. The general's eyes widened slightly. This was not what he expected. Throughout his military career, smaller opponents had always tried to keep their distance. When Nari was 3 meters away, she suddenly sprinted forward. The general raised his massive arms to grab her, but she slid under his reach and struck the back of his left knee with her reinforced boot. The impact was precise and powerful. Nari had studied Drakenary anatomy for hours and knew exactly where to hit. The knee joint bent slightly under the force, causing the general to stumble. Before he could recover, Nari was already moving again. She rolled away from his grasping hands and came up behind a nearby obstacle. "Impossible," someone in the crowd whispered. The general turned to face her, but Nari noticed he was favoring his left leg slightly. The strike had done exactly what she intended. It had damaged his mobility without causing permanent injury. "You will pay for that, prey animal," the general snarled. He charged again, but this time his movement was slightly slower and less balanced. Nari waited until the last second, then ducked under his reaching arms and struck his right ankle with a swift kick. The general roared in pain and anger. Both his legs were now compromised. He swung his massive fist down where Nari had been standing, but she had already moved away. 5 minutes remaining, Captain Mordok announced. The crowd was now completely absorbed in the combat. What had started as an expected slaughter was becoming something none of them had ever seen before. A human was actually fighting a Drakenary general on equal terms. General Vexter stood in the center of the arena, breathing heavily. His legs were unsteady, and his armor was scratched and dented. For the first time in his long military career, he was facing an opponent he could not intimidate or overpower. "You fight like a coward," he said, trying to provoke her into making a mistake. "I fight like a human," Nari corrected. "We adapt to our circumstances." She began circling him again, but this time at a closer distance. The general tried to follow, her movement, but his damaged legs made it difficult to turn quickly. Nari had spent years studying martial arts on Earth. Her instructors had taught her that every opponent had weaknesses, no matter how strong they appeared. The key was finding those weaknesses and exploiting them systematically. Your people conquered worlds through brute force, she said as she moved. For force is only effective when your opponent tries to match it directly. The general lunged at her again, his clawed hands reaching for her throat. Nari stepped aside and grabbed his wrist as he passed, using his own momentum against him. She pulled him forward and downward. The massive Trainee crashed to the arena floor with a thunderous impact that shook the entire building. His armor scraped against the synthetic surface, creating a shower of sparks. The crowd gasped. No one had expected to see General Vextar lying on the ground, but the general was far from defeated. He rolled over and swept his leg toward Nari's feet, trying to knock her down. She jumped over the sweep and landed in a crouch nearby. 4 minutes remaining, Mordok called out. The general climbed back to his feet, but the effort was clearly taxing. His breathing was now labored and sweat ran down his scaled face. The weight of his ceremonial armor, which had seemed so impressive at the start of combat, was now working against him. Nari studied his movements carefully. The falls and impacts were taking their toll. His reactions were becoming slower and his balance was compromised. She decided it was time to end this. "General," she said loudly enough for the entire arena to hear, "you called humans prey animals. You said we have no place among warriors, but look around you." The general followed her gesture toward the crowd. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were watching the combat with rapt attention. "They are not seeing a prey animal," Nari continued. "They are seeing a human who refused to accept your judgment. They are seeing someone who found a way to fight back against impossible. Odds words will not save you," the general growled, but there was less conviction in his voice than before. "You are right," Nari agreed. "Words will not save me, but knowledge will." She moved toward him again, this time with purpose and speed. The general raised his arms defensively, expecting another hit-and-run attack. Instead, Nari did something completely unexpected. She grabbed onto his armor and began climbing up his body like he was a tree. The general tried to grab her, but she was moving too quickly and unpredictably. Her hands found purchase on his armor plates while her feet pushed off his legs and torso. "What are you doing?" he demanded, trying to shake her off. "Ending this fight," Nari replied. She had climbed high enough to reach his neck area, where the armor had joints and gaps for mobility. According to her anatomical studies, Trainee had a cluster of nerve bundles just below the base of their skull. The general spun around, trying to dislodge her, but Nari held on tightly. Her years of physical training had given her exceptional upper body strength for her size. 3 minutes remaining, Mordok announced, but his voice sounded distant and unreal. Nari positioned herself carefully and struck the nerve cluster with the edge of her hand. It was a precise blow that required perfect timing and placement. The effect was immediate and dramatic. General Vextar's entire body went rigid. His nervous system, overwhelmed by the targeted strike, began shutting down non-essential functions. His legs buckled and he fell to his knees. Nari dropped to the ground and stepped back. The massive Trainee general was paralyzed from the neck down, though still conscious and breathing. The arena was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The impossible had happened. "I cannot move," the general said, his voice barely a whisper. "The paralysis is temporary," Nari assured him. "Your nervous system will recover in a few minutes. But right now, you cannot. Continue fighting." She looked up at the judge's booth. "I believe this constitutes victory by incapacitation." Admiral Kim stood up slowly, clearly struggling to process what he had just witnessed. He consulted with the other judges for several seconds before activating the sound system. "Combat is concluded," he announced. "Victory goes to Cadet Lee Nari by incapacitation of her opponent." The crowd erupted. Some alien cadets cheered in amazement. "Okay?" Others sat in stunned silence. The human section exploded with celebration. Their voices echoing through the arena, Captain Mordok checked his timer and made an announcement that would become part of Academy legend. Total combat time, 8 minutes and 17 seconds. Nari walked over to where General Vexstar knelt on the arena floor. Despite his paralysis, his eyes still burned with pride and fury. "How?" he asked simply. "I studied your species for months before coming to this academy," Nari explained. "I learned about your physiology, your psychology, and your fighting techniques. When you challenged all humans yesterday, I knew this moment would come. You planned this," he said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "I planned for the possibility. Your people respect strength, but you have a narrow definition of what strength means. You think it comes from muscles and claws and armor. But humans know that the greatest strength comes from here." She tapped her temple with one finger. "You fought bravely," she added, "but you fought the way you always fight. I fought the way I needed to fight." The medical team was approaching to check on both combatants, but Nari held up a hand to stop them. "There's one more thing to do," she said. "According to the rules of single combat, the victor had the right to claim one non-essential item from the defeated opponent." Nari looked at the star of Dragneri supremacy on the general's chest. Most prestigious military decoration in known space was about to change hands. The crowd watched in breathless anticipation as Nari reached toward the fallen general's chest. This moment would be remembered throughout the galaxy for generations to come. History was being made by a 19-year-old human cadet who had refused to accept that her species was inferior to anyone. Nari knelt beside General Vexstar and carefully unfastened the star of Dragneri supremacy from his chest armor. The metal was heavier than she expected, made from real gold and inlaid with precious red stones. Each point of the star represented a major military victory. In the center bore the symbol of the Dragneri High Command. The general could only watch as she lifted his most prized possession. His body was still paralyzed, but his eyes tracked her every movement. "This medal represents 60 years of military service," he said quietly. "Battles fought across 12 star systems, wars won and enemies defeated." "I know," Nari replied with respect. "I researched your military record before issuing the challenge. You earned this through courage and sacrifice." She stood up and held the medal high so the entire arena could see it. The golden star caught the lights and sparkled like a small sun. The crowd fell silent again. Everyone understood the significance of what they were witnessing. The highest military decoration of one of the galaxy's most powerful species now belonged to a human cadet. Today, this medal changes hands, Nari announced, her voice carrying clearly through the arena's sound system, but not because it was given as a gift or stolen in darkness. It was won in honorable combat, witnessed by thousands, according to laws that all our species respect. She turned slowly, making sure every section of the crowd could see her clearly. For too long, humans have been treated as inferior beings. We have been called weak, cowardly, and unfit for military service. Some of you have laughed at us. Others have dismissed us without a second thought. Today, that changes. In the human section, Salmin and the other cadets stood at attention. Their faces showed pride, mixed with amazement. None of them had expected their friend to not only survive the combat, but to win it so decisively. This medal now belongs to humanity, Nari continued. Not through inheritance or politics, but through trial by combat. We earned it the same way General Vextar earned it, through skill, determination, and the courage to face impossible odds. She looked directly at the alien cadets who had been laughing at her just days before. Let no one say again that humans are prey animals. We are warriors who fight with our minds as much as our bodies. We adapt to every challenge and overcome every obstacle. We bow to no one who mistakes cruelty for strength. The medical team finally reached General Vexter and began checking his condition. The paralysis was already starting to fade as his nervous system recovered. Within minutes, he would regain full movement, but the damage to his reputation would take much longer to heal. Admiral Kim descended from the judge's booth to officially conclude the combat. As the highest-ranking officer present, his words would be recorded and transmitted throughout the defense force. The challenge has been resolved according to military law, he announced. Cadet Lee Nari is declared the victor and is awarded the right to claim the agreed trophy. He paused and looked around the arena, taking in the faces of cadets from dozens of different worlds. To let this day be remembered as proof that courage and intelligence can triumph over any advantage of size or strength. The Academy's mission is to train the best officers in the galaxy, regardless of which species they come from. The crowd began to stir as the formal ceremony concluded. Some alien cadets started filing out, their conversations subdued. Others remained in their seats, still processing what they had witnessed. But one group was not ready to leave Captain. Mordic approached General Vexter as the medical team helped him to his feet. The general's paralysis had faded enough for him to stand, though he still moved carefully. "Sir," Mordock said quietly, "perhaps we should return to quarters. There will be many reports to file." General Vextar did not respond immediately. He was staring at Nari, who stood nearby, holding his medal. For the first time since the combat began, there was no anger in his expression. "Cadet," he called out. Nari turned to face him. "Yes, General, you fought with honor. Underestimated you and your species. That was my mistake." The words were difficult for him to say. Draknari culture valued strength above all else, and admitting weakness went against everything he had been taught since childhood. "You fought with honor as well," Nari replied. "This combat was not about hatred or revenge. It was about respect." General Vextar nodded slowly. Then, to the amazement of everyone watching, he came to attention and saluted her. It was a formal military salute given from one warrior to another. The gesture acknowledged Nari not as a cadet, but as an equal who had proven herself in battle. Salute was seen by every person in the arena. Within hours, recordings of the moment would spread throughout the Academy and beyond. By the end of the week, beings across the galaxy would know about the human cadet who had defeated a Dragnari general and earned his respect. Nari returned the salute properly, then extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. After a moment's hesitation, General Vextar reached out and shook it. His massive hand completely engulfed hers, but his grip was gentle and respectful. "Your people have much to teach us about warfare," he admitted. "Hope we can learn from each other in the future." "I would welcome that opportunity," Nari said. As the general and his aide left the arena, the human cadets finally approached their friend. Sumin reached her first and pulled her into a tight hug. "I cannot believe you actually did it," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You defeated him." "We all defeated him," Nari corrected. "Every human who refused to accept his judgment contributed to this victory." Commander Park pushed through the crowd of celebrating cadets. His usual stern expression had been replaced by something Nari had never seen before: pride. "That was the most magnificent display of tactical thinking I have ever witnessed," he said. "You turned every disadvantage into an advantage, every weakness into a strength." "Had good teachers," Nari replied. "What will you do with the medal?" asked Cadet Park Min-Ho. Nari looked down at the star of Trainee supremacy in her hands. The golden star seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "I will keep it," she said, "not as a trophy, but as a reminder. It will remind me that respect must be earned, never given. It will remind others that humans are capable of greatness when we refuse to accept limitations." Over the following days, word of the combat spread throughout the academy and beyond. The story grew with each telling, but the basic facts remained unchanged. A human cadet had challenged a Trainee general to single combat in just over 8 minutes. The effects were immediate and far-reaching. Alien cadets who had previously ignored or dismissed their human classmates began treating them as equals. Instructors started including human perspectives in their tactical discussions. The Academy's administration issued new guidelines prohibiting species-based discrimination. But perhaps the most important change was in the human cadets themselves. They walked taller, spoke with more confidence, and approached their studies with renewed determination. Nari had shown them that they belonged at the Academy just as much as any other species. 3 weeks after the combat, Nari received an unexpected visitor. General Vextar appeared at her dormitory room door, no longer wearing his ceremonial armor, but dressed in a simple uniform. "Cod, have come to make a request," he said, formally. "Kind request?" Nari asked. "I would like you to teach a class on human combat techniques. Many of our instructors are curious about the methods you used to defeat me." Nari considered the request carefully. "What would you want me to teach?" "Everything," the general replied. "Your species approaches warfare differently than any other in the galaxy. We need to understand these differences if we are to work together effectively." "I accept your request," Nari said, "but I have one condition." "Name it." "A class must be open to cadets from all species. If humans are going to share our knowledge, everyone should benefit from it." General Vextar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. But this time, the expression was not threatening. "Agreed. I believe this partnership will be beneficial for all involved." "Okay." As he turned to leave, Nari called after him, "General, why did you really come here today?" He stopped and looked back at her. "'Cause you taught me something important, cadet. Strength comes in many forms. I spent my entire career believing that physical power was the only strength that mattered. You showed me how wrong I was. And what do you believe now?" "I believe that the strongest warriors are those who can adapt to any situation and overcome any challenge. I believe that your species will play an important role in the future of the Defense Force." After he left, Nari sat at her desk and looked at the star of Trainee supremacy, which she had mounted on the wall above her bed. The metal caught the light from her reading lamp and cast star-shaped shadows on the ceiling. So Dashmin entered the room and saw her staring at the metal. "Do you ever regret challenging him?" she asked. "Never," Nari replied without hesitation. "That challenge changed everything for us. Before that day, We were just tolerated guests at this academy. Now we are respected members of the student body. What happens next? Nari smiled and picked up a tactical manual from her desk. Next, we proved that the combat was not a fluke. We showed them that every human at this academy is capable of greatness.